I would like to echo what Senator Byrne has said, and I think it's very important in the context of this, Minister, that we differentiate between the people of China and the government of China. What has been outlined in the motion is something that is in many ways anathema to us in Ireland. We benefit here from a very democratic society, one where people have free speech, have the right to raise issues, to criticise their government, and they certainly avail of that opportunity as they should. When we look across to China in general, and certainly to Hong Kong in recent times, people simply don't have that opportunity. They are suppressed, they are oppressed, they are prevented from exercising their democratic rights and their rights of free speech. This is a major problem. And as I say, this is something that is not being done by Chinese people but by their government, which doesn't necessarily act in their name the way our government acts in our name. But I think as we look at that situation now, Ireland is in a unique position diplomatically and internationally, both as a member of the Security Council but also as a state that doesn't directly compete with China in terms of military issues or industry or things like that. We are not a threat to China, and there's an opportunity for you, Minister, and for Minister Coveney and for other members of the government to speak to China at a level and to speak to them as friends, but also to be very clear about what cannot be tolerated on the international stage. And if China wants to continue to be part of the international community, it must respect the norms of human rights and democracy that it claims to have, but simply does not exercise on a day-to-day basis. And that's a message that we need to send very clearly as a country and as a government to the Chinese government, and particularly the authorities in Hong Kong, in the manner in which they approach their own citizenry, in the manner in which they approach the rights of those citizens. And like Senator Byrne, Minister, I would like a very clear statement from the government that we cannot accept this, we do not accept this, and we will not stand by.
Thank you, Senators, for your time, TV. Minister Brown.
Gormagat the Cahirlig and Gormagat Shanadori Chor and Tower Shaw, Fina Rod Armagin. Ireland has very long-standing connections with Hong Kong and a strong Irish community there. The Department of Foreign Affairs has been closely monitoring political developments there, in particular the implementation of the National Security Law adopted last year in June. These measures have led to the detention of a number of pro-democracy and human rights activists over the past few months. We are particularly concerned following the mass arrest of 55 pro-democracy lawmakers and activists on the 6th of January this year. These charges were made in relation to the holding of primary elections to select pro-democracy candidates for the next Legislative Council elections. In response, the EU made a statement on the 7th of January calling for the immediate release of those arrested and urged the authorities to respect Hong Kong's rule of law, human rights, democratic principles and its high degree of autonomy under the one country, two systems principle as enshrined in the Hong Kong Basic Law and in line with domestic and indeed international obligations. All but 3 of those detained have since been released. Ireland and the EU have been active in raising concerns about the law and have issued a number of statements which outline our concern regarding the situation, and we call on China to respect its international commitments and the high degree of autonomy granted to Hong Kong under the one country, two systems principle. Minister Coveney made a statement on the 1st of July last year to express concern at the adoption of the law and to reiterate Ireland's full support for fundamental freedoms in Hong Kong, such as freedom of expression and the right to peaceful assembly. On the 28th of July, the EU adopted Council conclusions expressing grave concern over the national security legislation for Hong Kong. These conclusions restated the EU's support for Hong Kong's high degree of autonomy, and we expressed our solidarity with the people of Hong Kong and set out a package of measures in various fields, including asylum, migration, visa and residence policy, controls on the exports of specific sensitive equipment and technologies for end use in Hong Kong, and the operation of Member States' extradition arrangements and other relevant agreements with Hong Kong. In line with these conclusions, the Government then agreed on the 13th of October 2020 to suspend Ireland's extradition agreement with Hong Kong. This decision, which was taken in concert with a number of other EU Member States, clearly signals Ireland's concern in relation to the rule of law in Hong Kong. Minister Coveney also raises concerns in Hong Kong directly with the Chinese ambassador to Ireland. The EU continues to raise our concerns with Chinese authority, particularly at the most recent EU-China summit and the EU-China leaders' meeting. The Irish Government, through our Consulate General in Hong Kong, our Embassy in Beijing and our EU partners, we will continue to monitor and assess the situation in Hong Kong, and we will respond to these developments appropriately.
And it's very important that we make that statement. I hope it will now be followed with actions. Just as Senator Byrne has said, that we take concrete actions to send that message back to the authorities in Hong Kong, that we will not stand by and that we will take actions like the ones that you've mentioned in your reply to specifically address the issues that have been raised here this morning.
Senator Ward, Minister.
Thank again the senators for their comments. Ireland and the EU obviously are deeply concerned about the situation in Hong Kong and the implementation of national security legislation there. And given our engagement with the region and our responsibility towards our own citizens there, it is correct that we do so. We continue to raise these concerns directly and consistently by engaging with Chinese and Hong Kong authorities, bilaterally and in multilateral fora. The protection of the one country, two systems principle in Hong Kong, as well as the fundamental freedoms granted under Hong Kong's basic law, are of the utmost importance to Ireland and the EU. So the adoption of EU Council conclusions on Hong Kong and the accompanying package of response measures highlights how seriously we are taking this situation. The suspension of our extradition treaty with Hong Kong shows that the Irish Government is willing to take action in response to the adoption of this law. We will continue to engage actively on the matter through continued implementation of the agreed EU response measures, through further measures that might be agreed, and through continued engagement with both the Chinese and Hong Kong authorities.
Minister, thank you, Senators. The next commencement is